Have you ever dreamed of something so big that it felt completely out of reach? Have you ever felt that deep desire to live something extraordinary, yet when you looked at your life, everything seemed impossible? What if I told you there's an invisible force capable of turning your desires into reality, even when all signs seem to say otherwise? This is the true story of Adrian Silva, an ordinary man who discovered the extraordinary within himself, a man who dared to believe when everything pushed him to give up, a man who dreamed of traveling the world but, constrained by financial limitations, never imagined how it could happen, until he decided to trust the law of attraction, and his life would never be the same. Adrian was born in Lisbon, Portugal. The son of a seamstress and a warehouse worker, he grew up in a simple, loving home. From a young age, he spent hours looking at travel magazines his mother found at second-hand newsstands. He was fascinated by images of African deserts, Japanese temples, dazzling cities like New York, and paradisical beaches in Asia. His heart would race every time he saw a picture of an airplane taking off. In his mind, he was already there, sitting by the window, watching the world pass beneath the clouds. But in reality, life was hard. His family barely managed to pay the bills, and international trips were an unreachable luxury. Even as an adult, working as a clerk in a small electronics store, Adrian kept that flame alive. At 36, he had never left Portugal. Seeing friends posting photos from other countries, short trips to France or Spain filled him with a mix of admiration and frustration. When will it be my turn? He would silently ask himself while organizing boxes in the store's back room. It was on a cold winter night that everything began to change. Adrian was browsing the internet without expectations when he stumbled upon a video about the law of attraction. The title caught his attention. You can create the life you desire. Skeptical but curious, he clicked. With every word he heard, something inside him shifted. The video spoke about the power of thoughts, the importance of visualizing your desires as if they were already reality, and practicing gratitude in advance. Could this be real? He thought. What if I really can manifest what I want, even with no money in my pocket? That night, something changed within him. He closed his eyes and for the first time tried to imagine himself traveling. Not just dreaming, but feeling it. He pictured himself on a plane, heard the roar of the engines, felt the vibration of takeoff. He imagined the airport smells, the warmth of a tropical country, the thrill of stepping onto foreign soil. For the first time in years, Adrian went to sleep with a smile on his face. In the days that followed, he dove headfirst into this new world. He bought books about the law of attraction, watched online talks, and listened to stories of people who had transformed their lives by applying these principles. The most striking moment came when he read a sentence that seemed written just for him. You don't need to know how, you just need to believe it's already yours. Those words echoed in his mind. He didn't know how he would travel. He had no money, no contacts abroad, not even a valid passport. But he decided it didn't matter. The how was up to the universe. His role was to believe, visualize, and feel gratitude. Adrian started a daily routine. Every night before going to sleep, he closed his eyes and imagined himself in different countries. Sometimes walking the streets of Paris, other times watching the sunset on Thai beaches. He wrote in a notebook phrases like, I am grateful for every trip I take. The world is my home, and I travel effortlessly. The universe always opens the right doors for me. At first, it felt like a game, but over time, he began to feel something different, an inner confidence he had never experienced before. Of course, it wasn't easy. His rational mind tried to sabotage him. You'll never make it. Travel is for the rich. This is just imagination. But Adrian persisted. Instead of fighting these thoughts, he replaced them with positive affirmations. When doubt appeared, he said aloud, the universe is taking care of everything. And little by little, signs began to appear. The first one came unexpectedly. A regular customer at the store mentioned he was organizing a cultural exchange for young people in Portugal. Adrian, though no longer very young, became curious. When he asked for more details, he discovered they were accepting volunteers of any age to help organize the event, and, in return, offered free accommodation for future editions in partner countries. Adrian's heart raced. It was a small opportunity, but something inside him knew this was the beginning. That night, lying in bed, he gave thanks as if he had already traveled. He closed his eyes and repeated, "Thank you, universe. Thank you for already taking me around the world." It was only the first sign, but he knew the wheel had started turning. Have you ever felt like the universe was conspiring in your favor? Like strange coincidences start happening right after you make an important decision? That's exactly what Adrian began to experience. After talking to the client organizing cultural exchanges, Adrian felt more excited than ever. It wasn't a promise of immediate travel, but it was an opening. It was as if a small door had slightly cracked open. He decided he wouldn't let any opportunity slip by. If the law of attraction worked, he needed to stay alert and be ready to act when called upon. The following week, he contacted the organization mentioned by the client. He explained that he couldn't afford to participate as a student, but he wanted to volunteer. To his surprise, he received a positive reply. "Of course, Adrian, we need people to help with event logistics. If you participate, you'll have access to all the meetings, interact with foreigners, and, who knows, maybe open doors for future trips." His heart leapt with joy. It wasn't the international trip he dreamed of yet, but it was a real first step. At the event, held in Lisbon, Adrian threw himself into the work with enthusiasm. He set up tables, welcomed participants, translated small parts of conversations from English to Portuguese. More than work, it was learning. For the first time, he was surrounded by people from different countries: French, Italian, German, Brazilian. Every accent, every story, every smile made the world feel closer. During one coffee break, he spoke with a young woman named Emma from England. She told him about an international volunteer network that traveled the world helping social projects in exchange for accommodation and meals. Adrian was intrigued. "What do you mean?" he asked, eyes shining. "It's simple," Emma replied. "You sign up for projects and offer to help. They don't pay for your travel, but they cover lodging and food. Before you know it, you're living in another country, experiencing new cultures almost for free." That conversation sparked a new flame. Adrian didn't yet know how he'd buy plane tickets, but he could see a concrete possibility. That night, he returned home exhausted but buzzing with ideas. He sat at his notebook, where he recorded his visualizations, and wrote in bold letters, "I am traveling the world as a volunteer, experiencing new cultures, receiving love and abundance from the universe." And as he wrote, he felt it was already true. The following days brought more synchronicities. A distant friend contacted him to offer free English lessons in a study group. Adrian had always had a basic level, but never mastered the language. It felt like the universe saying, "Get ready, you're going to need this." That same week, he found a used copy of The Secret by Rhonda Byrne in a bookstore for only €2. He smiled, noticing how everything seemed to align. Every small detail strengthened his faith. But the biggest sign came a month later. Emma, the English volunteer, sent a message. "Adrian, there's a project starting in Italy. They need volunteers to help restore an old village. You just need to get there. Accommodation and meals are covered. Are you interested?" Adrian froze in front of the screen. Italy! The country of landscapes he had always dreamed of visiting, with historic squares and romantic cities. But alongside the excitement came fear. He had no money for the plane ticket. His salary barely covered rent and bills. How could he embark on this adventure? That night, lying in bed, anxiety gripped his chest. Is this all just an illusion? How can I believe I'll travel without even being able to pay for a plane ticket? Instead of giving in to despair, he remembered the teachings of the law of attraction. Don't focus on the problem, focus on the solution. Don't think about what you lack, think about how you'd feel if you had already achieved it. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and imagined himself walking through the streets of Rome. He smelled espresso coffee, heard the sound of Vespa motorcycles, and saw himself smiling in front of the Colosseum. He let himself fully immerse in the scene until fear melted away, replaced by a sense of certainty. Then the unexpected happened. 2 days later, a distant cousin called. He worked for an airline and had received a special travel voucher but couldn't use it during that period. "Adrian, I thought of you. You always talk about wanting to travel, right? If you want, I can give you this voucher. It'll cost very little." Adrian nearly dropped the phone. It was as if the universe had answered his visualization directly. With effort, using part of his salary and some savings, he managed to buy the ticket to Rome. The day he boarded the plane, tears quietly streamed down his face. The young man who had always believed traveling was a distant dream was now seated on an airplane, watching Lisbon shrink beneath the window. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Thank you, universe. Thank you for showing me that anything is possible." The experience in Italy was transformative. He worked hard restoring the village, but in return, he received not only lodging and food, but friendships that would last a lifetime. He met people from all over the world, learned new words in different languages, tasted traditional dishes lovingly prepared by local residents. And in every moment, he remembered what had brought him there: intention and faith. Adrian realized he wasn't just traveling. He was becoming a different person, more confident, more open, more grateful. And each day, a growing certainty blossomed inside him. This was only the first of many. Have you ever noticed how, after taking the first step, life seems to align everything for you to keep moving forward? Have you ever realized that when you decide to trust, signs appear almost magically? That's exactly what happened to Adrian Silva after his first trip to Italy. Back in Lisbon, Adrian felt like a new person. The experience in the Italian village had opened not only geographic horizons, but also spiritual ones. He now knew, through his own experience, that the law of attraction really worked. Before, it was just theory, videos, books, lectures. Now, it was reality. He had imagined, felt, expressed gratitude, and, unexpectedly, an opportunity had arisen. If it happened once, he thought, as he walked through the narrow streets of Lisbon, it can happen again, again, and again. This conviction became the fuel for his life. Back in his routine at the electronics store, Adrian began to see everything with new eyes. He no longer viewed work as a prison, but as a bridge. Every customer, every conversation, every situation could be a channel to something greater. And that's exactly how the next sign appeared. A Brazilian couple came into the store to buy power adapters. As they chatted, they mentioned they were traveling through Europe with a cultural project, filming local traditions and sharing them on a video channel. "Traveling is expensive, isn't it?" Adrian asked, curious. "Not really," the woman replied, smiling. "When you trust, things appear. Often we get free accommodation in exchange for promotion. Sometimes we're invited to events, and the trip flows. The secret is to believe and stay open." Adrian fell silent for a few seconds. It was as if the universe was once again reinforcing the message. Before leaving, the couple left a card with contacts and links to couch surfing and work exchange platforms, where travelers could trade services for lodging. Another sign. That night, Adrian couldn't sleep. He grabbed his notebook where he recorded his practices and wrote, "I am grateful for meeting amazing people who help me on my travels. I am connected to unexpected opportunities everywhere. The universe guides me to where I need to be." And suddenly, a strange feeling washed over him.
It wasn't anxiety, it wasn't fear. It was a kind of silent certainty. He knew something big was coming. A few days later, he received a message from Luca, one of the Italian friends he had met in the village. "Adrian, we're organizing a group trip to Croatia. We need someone to help with English to Portuguese and Spanish translation, since we'll have volunteers from Latin America. Are you in?" Adrian's eyes widened as he stared at his phone. Croatia, another country he had only seen in pictures. But, as always, his rational mind appeared. "You don't have money for tickets. What about work? Will they let you go again? Is this real?" He took a deep breath and remembered how he had manifested the trip to Italy. He decided he wouldn't let fear sabotage the process. He closed his eyes, played some calm music, and visualized himself walking along the walls of Dubrovnik, feeling the Adriatic breeze. This time, however, the universe was even more generous. When he told the store manager about the possibility of the trip, he surprised Adrian by saying, "You know what, Adrian? I think it's amazing how you're living these experiences. Go ahead, I'll arrange your schedule here. You deserve it." And, as if that weren't enough, Luca informed him that the volunteer group had secured group discounts on train and ferry tickets. Adrian would only need to pay a symbolic amount, something he could manage with a little effort. Once again, the law of attraction was confirming itself before his eyes. The trip to Croatia was even more intense than Italy. Adrian helped with translations, but also had time to explore medieval towns, dive into the crystal-clear sea, and share simple meals filled with stories. Every sunset seemed to whisper to him, "See, Adrian, the world is yours. You just need to believe." And with each new day, his heart expanded with gratitude. Back in Lisbon, he realized he was no longer the same man who had boarded a plane months earlier. Not just because he had traveled to 2 countries in a short time, but because he now carried an unshakable faith within him. He began sharing his experiences with colleagues, family, and friends. Some laughed, some doubted, but many were moved. Some even asked for advice on how to apply the law of attraction in their own lives. Adrian realized he was becoming a source of inspiration. And then the third big sign arrived. One day, he received an unexpected email. It was from Emma, the English volunteer who had introduced him to the first project. "Adrian, I know you love helping and traveling. A group in India is looking for volunteers for an educational program. They provide lodging, food, and internal transportation. You just need to get there. Are you interested?" India. His heart almost stopped. It was a country that had always fascinated him, with its spirituality, its colors, its music, its temples. But it also seemed so distant, so unattainable. That night, instead of letting fear consume him, Adrian repeated the practice he already knew. He visualized himself walking through Indian markets, listening to mantras, smelling the spices in the air. And, as if by magic, a few days later, he received a call from his cousin who worked at the airline. "Adrian, remember the voucher I gave you? Well, I have another one, and this time it's even better. I can get you a ticket to Mumbai for less than half the price." He couldn't believe it. It was as if the universe was saying, "You asked, you believed, now here it is." On the day of departure, sitting on the plane to India, Adrian cried with emotion. He looked out the window, saw the clouds below, and thought, "It all started with a simple desire. I didn't know how, but I believed, and now I am here, living the impossible."
Have you ever wondered what it would be like to achieve a dream that seemed impossible? Have you imagined the feeling of stepping into a place you had only seen in photos, believing you would never have the means to visit? For Adrian Silva, that experience came to life when he embarked on a journey to India, a destination that would change not only the way he traveled, but also his perspective on life, faith, and abundance. When the plane landed in Mumbai, Adrian felt his heart race. From above, he had seen an immense city full of colors, sounds, and movement. As soon as he stepped out of the airport, he was greeted by a wave of humid heat and the strong aroma of spices mixed with smoke. It was a sensory shock. Everything seemed intense: honking cars, motorcycles weaving through chaotic traffic, people rushing along the streets, street vendors offering food. Adrian, carrying only a simple backpack, took a deep breath and smiled. "I'm here. The universe has brought me here." The volunteer program took him to a small town inland, a few hours away. There, Adrian would help in a community school, teaching basic English to underprivileged children. When he arrived, he was welcomed with flowers and warm smiles. The children looked at him with curiosity, some even laughing at his accent. But there was something magical in that connection. In the first few days, Adrian felt out of place. The language was a barrier, the food was unfamiliar, and even the climate seemed to test him. But instead of complaining, he chose to practice what he had learned from the law of attraction: gratitude in every circumstance. Each morning before going to school, he would sit in silence, close his eyes, and give thanks. "Thank you, universe, for this opportunity. Thank you for being in India. Thank you for every smile, every challenge, every lesson." And that's how the doors began to open even further. One day, one of the local teachers, Priya, approached him and asked why he had chosen that project. Adrian shared his story: the deep desire to travel, the financial struggles, the discovery of the law of attraction, and how everything seemed to align for him to be there. Priya was impressed. "You know, Adrian, many people dream of coming here, but few truly believe they can. You are living proof that when we trust, the universe responds." That phrase stayed in his mind. He was not just a traveler, he was living proof that true faith moves mountains. Weeks turned into months. Adrian adapted to the Indian rhythm, learned words in Hindi, participated in religious festivals, and enjoyed traditional dishes prepared by local families. One special night, during the Diwali festival, he watched the sky light up with fireworks and lanterns. Children ran through the streets, adults lit candles in front of their homes. Adrian, deeply moved, closed his eyes and felt a wave of gratitude flow through him. There, amid a culture so different from his own, he realized that the world had no borders. Everyone was connected by the same energy, the same pursuit of happiness and love. And then something even more remarkable happened. One of the program coordinators, impressed by Adrian's dedication, recommended him to an international organization looking for volunteers for other educational programs in Asia. "You have a different energy," said the coordinator. "I believe you can inspire even more people. I'd like to refer you for a special position." It was as if the universe was preparing the next step even before Adrian thought about it. But beyond the opportunities, India also brought profound lessons. Once, while visiting a temple in Varanasi, Adrian met a monk who said something unforgettable. "What you seek outside is within." Journeys are not only to see the world, but to discover who you truly are. These words resonated deeply. Until that moment, Adrian believed his greatest dream was to travel. But little by little, he realized that travel was only a mirror of his inner growth. During that time, he wrote in his practice notebook, "I am grateful for living in abundance, even when I have little. Life gives me exactly what I need, at the right moment. I am free to explore the world and at the same time explore myself." And months later, as he reread his notes, he realized that everything he had written was already happening. The impact of India was so profound that Adrian knew he would never be the same. He returned to Portugal different, lighter, more confident, more connected to something greater. People around him noticed the change. "Adrian, what happened to you?" they asked. "I just learned to trust," he replied with a serene smile. This trip was his first great manifestation, not only because it allowed him to visit a distant country practically for free, but because it showed that the law of attraction was not just about external achievements. It was, above all, about internal transformation. When Adrian Silva returned from his first major trip to India, he did not return the same person. His mind had expanded, his eyes saw the world from a new perspective, and his heart carried a sense of confidence that had not existed before. He knew with absolute certainty that he had opened a door. Once the universe had shown its power, there was no turning back. In the first days back in Portugal, Adrian could still smell the spices, hear the honking of Mumbai in his memory, and see the vibrant colors of Diwali lanterns. India had not just been a country visited, it had been a spiritual calling, a turning point. As he organized his notes in the gratitude journal, he realized something remarkable. Every written phrase, every visualization, every word of thanks had materialized exactly or even better than he could have imagined. This recognition gave him unshakable conviction. He began to think, if I could manifest something as big as an international trip, what else can I create? This question was not asked with doubt, but curiosity. It was as if he had discovered a new ability, the ability to co-create his reality, and now he wanted to explore its limits. In the following months, Adrian intensified his practice. Every morning, before any activity, he dedicated at least 20 minutes to connect with his vision. He closed his eyes, breathed deeply, and imagined himself living new experiences around the world. Not just dreaming, but feeling intensely. He imagined the touch of sand on distant beaches, the cold of European cities, the sounds of different languages around him. Gradually, signs began to appear. Unexpected invitations, connections with people he had never imagined meeting, opportunities to collaborate on international projects. It was as if the universe, now accustomed to responding to his requests, was accelerating the process. One of the first synchronizations occurred when Adrian received an email from a cultural organization in Thailand. They had seen his volunteer work on a travel blog and were offering him a place in an exchange program for young educators. Most of the expenses would be covered. Once again, it was confirmation. When he aligned with his vision, life found a way to fit the pieces together. But the expansion of the journey was not limited to travel. Adrian also began to notice deep changes in his personal life. Before, he saw himself as insecure, concerned about others' opinions, and always limited by lack of resources. Now he recognized himself as confident, creative, and capable of inspiring others. His friends noticed the difference. People who had once seen him as the dreamer boy now approached him seeking advice on motivation, discipline, and even spirituality. This new phase also brought challenges. There were moments when doubt crept in, when old insecurities tried to return. On some days, Adrian looked at his bank balance and wondered how he could sustain the lifestyle he was building. But in those moments, instead of giving in to fear, he remembered India. He recalled the moment, sitting before the lights of Diwali, when he had felt that the entire world was interconnected. If the universe brought me here, it will also take care of the next steps, he repeated to himself. And indeed, the next steps came. Adrian began sharing his experiences in small local gatherings. He brought together groups of people interested in self-development and spoke about his travels, always relating the stories to the practice of the law of attraction. Curiously, the more he shared, the more opportunities appeared. It was as if the act of teaching and inspiring others opened even more channels for him to receive blessings. One night, after one of these talks, a businessman approached him. The man had been impressed by the clarity and passion with which Adrian spoke and invited him to participate in an international human development project. It was something he could never have imagined months ago. The offer included travel across Latin America, allowing him to combine his two passions, traveling and impacting lives. Adrian realized that his life had taken a completely different path from what he had planned years before. He, who once believed himself trapped by limitations, now lived as an example of freedom. But the most important thing was not the countries he visited or the opportunities he received. The most important thing was the internal transformation.
He had understood that abundance was not only about money or travel, but about feeling connected to something greater, believing in his own power, and trusting in the synchronicity of life. The pages of his gratitude journal were now filled not just with wishes, but with testimonies. Every line was proof that consistent faith produces tangible results. Adrian felt that his mission had only just begun. And within him, a new vision was born: to inspire thousands of people around the world to also believe in the law of attraction and the power to create a different reality. The expansion of the journey was not merely geographic. It was spiritual, emotional, and human. India had been the awakening, but now he was entering a phase where every step seemed guided by something greater. It was as if an invisible force were saying, "Keep going. You have much further to go."
Adrian Silva no longer saw the law of attraction merely as something that had transformed his life. For him, it had become a mission. It was no longer just about achieving his personal dreams, but about helping others discover that they too could completely transform their realities. The invitation to participate in an international human development project in Latin America was the spark. For the first time, Adrian traveled not just to receive experiences, but to share them. He landed in Sao Paulo, Brazil, amid vibrant energy, and there he delivered his first international lecture in front of an audience of over 100 people. The theme was simple and direct: how faith and intention can change your life. That night, as he shared his story, Adrian noticed something powerful. People cried, smiled, and saw themselves reflected in every part of his narrative. When he spoke of having no money but having a dream, many nodded in agreement. When he mentioned that he had started with only a gratitude journal, some even showed that they had their own. He realized that his story was not just his, it was a mirror for thousands of other lives. With each lecture, the impact grew. In Mexico, he met a young woman named Camila who was about to give up studying due to a lack of resources. Inspired by Adrian, she began practicing visualization every day. Months later, she earned a full scholarship to a university abroad. In Peru, a businessman in crisis listened to Adrian and decided to shift his mindset. Shortly after, his company found new investors. These results were no coincidence. They were living proof that the power of intention, when combined with faith, truly worked. Adrian began to realize that he no longer needed to seek opportunities. They found him. Invitations to international events appeared frequently. In each country, he not only shared his experience, but also learned. He encountered different cultures, diverse religions, and unique ways of connecting with the divine. The more he learned, the more his faith grew. He understood that at the core, all traditions spoke of the same force: the creative power of thought and connection with the universe. But the mission also brought new challenges. There were moments of exhaustion, long trips, sleepless nights, and even criticism. Some people claimed that was all coincidence, that he was simply lucky. At first, Adrian felt bothered by these words, but he soon realized they were merely reflections of the limited mindset that many still carried. "I know what I lived, I know what I experienced, and nothing will make me doubt it," he repeated to himself. During this phase, Adrian decided to expand his impact even further. He began writing a book about his journey. In it, he detailed how he had moved from scarcity to abundance, how he applied gratitude and visualization daily, and how each trip had materialized before his eyes. The process of writing was, for him, an exercise in clarity. Each chapter was living proof that the universe responds to those who know how to ask and believe. Over time, the book took shape and became another channel of inspiration. People who had never attended his lectures now had access to his stories and the tools he used. Messages of gratitude began arriving from all over: emails, letters, even phone calls. Men and women shared that their lives had changed simply by following the steps Adrian described. This flood of gratitude touched his heart deeply. Many nights, he found himself moved alone in his hotel room, remembering the young man who, years ago, wondered if he would ever have the means to see the world.
Now, not only did he see it, but he left a mark in every place he visited. What impressed Adrian most was the synchronicity of events. On a trip to Chile, for example, he met a woman who had kept a plane ticket for years, waiting for the right moment to use it. After hearing his lecture, she said, "You showed me that the moment is now." Days later, she finally embarked on her first international trip. These small miracles, multiplied by hundreds of stories, gave Adrian certainty that he was fulfilling something greater than a personal desire. His life had transformed into a mission. It was no longer about traveling the world without spending money. It was about teaching that anyone, under any circumstances, could use the same power to achieve their own dreams. As months passed, Adrian felt a new inspiration. He wanted to create something even greater, something that united all the people being impacted. This led to the creation of a global community, a space where people from different countries could share their transformation stories and support one another. This movement, which he called Connection Without Borders, started simply as an online group, but it soon grew, gathering hundreds of members. There, stories of overcoming challenges were shared daily, and each testimony became fuel for another. Adrian saw this as the ultimate proof. When one person lights their own flame, they automatically help illuminate the path for others. Adrian's mission was no longer an idea. It was a tangible reality, connecting lives, inspiring change, and proving that the law of attraction was far more than a theory. It was a lifestyle. And deep in his soul, he knew this was only the beginning.
As Adrian Silva's mission began to scale, he realized that the journey was not only made of achievements. Traveling the world, inspiring people, creating a global community, and writing his book were incredible experiences. But they also came with challenges that demanded strength, discipline, and emotional balance. The first difficulty appeared subtly. With so many commitments, Adrian began to feel the weight of fatigue. There were nights when he returned from long lectures, often in different time zones, and still had to prepare content for the next events. On some days, physical exhaustion mixed with mental strain, and he wondered if he could maintain this pace. Additionally, criticism arose. People close to him doubted his intentions, saying he was traveling too much and neglecting his responsibilities. Online, some criticized his lectures, claiming the law of attraction was too magical and didn't work in reality. Adrian felt the impact of these words, but decided not to let them affect him. He remembered all the concrete experiences he had lived, manifested trips, opportunities that appeared out of nowhere, people impacted by his work. Each real proof of manifestation became his anchor, his strength to continue. The greatest challenge, however, was internal. Adrian realized that the more people he impacted, the more he needed to keep his own energy aligned. It was easy to get carried away by fatigue, doubt, or fear of failure. He understood that, to continue being a channel of inspiration, he needed to care for himself as much as he cared for others. So, he resumed habits he had learned since his first trip. Every day, he dedicated time to meditation and visualization. He maintained a gratitude journal, recording small achievements, not just grand accomplishments. Every positive step, act of generosity, and shared story became fuel for his faith. During a trip to Colombia, Adrian faced an event that marked his journey profoundly. An unexpected storm canceled flights and transportation, leaving him stranded in an unfamiliar city. For the first time, he felt real fear. But instead of panicking, he took a deep breath and connected with his practice. He visualized himself safe, aligned with the flow of the universe, and confident that everything would work out. Minutes later, he found a local driver who offered him a ride to his destination for free. The experience reinforced his faith in synchronicity. When we maintain trust and act with intention, solutions appear in unexpected ways. Another constant challenge was balancing his personal life with the global mission. Adrian had friends and family who felt his absence, and he had to learn to connect emotionally even from afar.
He discovered that sincere messages, calls, photos, and small gestures of affection could keep bonds alive while he continued his journey around the world. Despite the challenges, each obstacle brought learning. Adrian began to realize that true strength was not only in external manifestations, trips, opportunities, meetings, but in the ability to remain steadfast in the face of adversity, maintain faith even when everything seemed uncertain, and stay inspired without being affected by criticism or fatigue. It was during this period that he realized something important. The law of attraction does not remove challenges, but teaches us to face them with courage, focus, and faith. Every difficulty was a test, an opportunity for growth, and Adrian learned to see it that way. Amid all of this, he also connected with people who shared the same vision. Mentors, fellow volunteers, and new friends from different countries became emotional support and inspiration. The global community, which had started small, now grew and strengthened, and Adrian saw it as an extension of his own evolution. Looking back, he realized that every trip, every lecture, every challenge, every manifestation was not just about him. It was about the transformation he could generate in others. Every shared story of overcoming obstacles, every emotional smile from someone touched by his words, reaffirmed that he was on the right path.
Adrian Silva looked out the window of his apartment in Lisbon and took a deep breath. It felt as if his entire life had condensed into a single moment of clarity. Every trip, every lecture, every person he had impacted, every challenge he had overcome, all had led to this: a profound understanding that true manifestation goes far beyond fulfilling superficial desires. True manifestation happens when we become the highest version of ourselves. Over the years, Adrian had traveled to more than 20 countries. He had experienced diverse cultures, different languages, and unique traditions. But what truly transformed him were not the places themselves. It was the experiences lived, the people touched, and the constant connection with the universe. He realized that the law of attraction is not limited to acquiring external things, but to transforming the way we see life, how we relate to others, and how we feel gratitude in every moment. On his journey, Adrian witnessed incredible stories. Young people who believed in his words earned scholarships. Adults who had lost faith in their dreams regained control of their lives. Families living in scarcity began to thrive. Each story shared with him was more than a narrative. It was living proof that the power of intention, faith, and gratitude is real and accessible to everyone. On his journey, Adrian witnessed incredible stories. Young people who believed in his words earned scholarships. Adults who had lost faith in their dreams regained control of their lives. Families living in scarcity began to thrive. Each story shared with him was more than a narrative. It was living proof that the power of intention, faith, and gratitude is real and accessible to everyone. On his journey, Adrian witnessed incredible stories. Young people who believed in his words earned scholarships. Adults who had lost faith in their dreams regained control of their lives. Families living in scarcity began to thrive. Each story shared with him was more than a narrative. It was living proof that the power of intention, faith, and gratitude is real and accessible to everyone. On his journey, Adrian witnessed incredible stories. Young people who believed in his words earned scholarships. Adults who had lost faith in their dreams regained control of their lives. Families living in scarcity began to thrive. Each story shared with him was more than a narrative. It was living proof that the power of intention, faith, and gratitude is real and accessible to everyone. On his journey, Adrian witnessed incredible stories. Young people who believed in his words earned scholarships. Adults who had lost faith in their dreams regained control of their lives. Families living in scarcity began to thrive. Each story shared with him was more than a narrative. It was living proof that the power of intention, faith, and gratitude is real and accessible to everyone. On his journey, Adrian witnessed incredible stories.
Young people who believed in his words earned scholarships. Adults who had lost faith in their dreams regained even with all the success and recognition, Adrian remained humble. He knew that every opportunity that arose was not solely the result of his individual effort, but the outcome of a deep connection with the universe. Every trip taken without spending money, every unexpected chance, every synchronicity that transformed his life and the lives of others was a manifestation of life's natural flow aligning with his vibration of gratitude and trust. At one of his last international events, Adrian spoke before an audience of 1,000 people. He didn't just share his travel stories. He explained step by step how he applied the law of attraction daily, writing down intentions, visualizing with emotion, feeling gratitude as if he had already achieved his goals, and remaining open to the universe's signs. The audience's reaction was intense. People cried, smiled, and embraced their dreams with renewed hope. It was as if every word Adrian spoke ignited an inner flame, reminding each person that they too could transform their lives regardless of circumstances. And then, in a quiet moment, Adrian realized something no one could measure: a sense of complete fulfillment. It wasn't just about the trips or the achievements. It was about feeling connected to a greater purpose, recognizing that his journey had meaning, and understanding that he had fulfilled his mission to inspire, motivate, and demonstrate the real power of the law of attraction. But Adrian knew the story didn't end there. He understood that every audience member, every reader, every person who heard his story had the capacity to create their own transformation. He knew he couldn't simply tell his story and expect the world to change on its own. It was time to invite everyone to take action. "If you're listening to me now," he said during a lecture, "I want you to know that everything I've shared is real. This isn't about luck or coincidence. It's about intention, faith, and aligned action. You can also manifest your dreams, live experiences that seem impossible, and completely transform your reality. But you have to start. You need to believe, practice gratitude, and feel the change as if it's